Welcome to Airshow Action 2023. In this programme, we'll travel to nearly 30 air shows in 11 countries, enjoying the debuts, farewells, anniversaries and special formations that made 2023 stand out from any other year. The industry is still recovering from the COVID pandemic, with numerous events returning to the calendar after their lockdown-induced hibernation. We'll have coverage of the much-loved shows in Avalon and Langkawi, returning to the calendar after a lengthy hiatus. We enjoyed numerous new displays this year, the debuts of the KF-21 and F-15 QA for example, and we also said farewell to Belgium's outstanding F-16 solo display. There were several major anniversaries to celebrate this year. The 100th anniversary of the Italian Air Force saw special paint schemes and aircraft restored to flight specifically to mark the occasion, while the 100th anniversary of the art of aerial refuelling was a central theme of this year's Royal International Air Tattoo. It's been a busy year for Warbirds, with P-47 Bonnie, P-51 Thunderbird and Super Constellation Bataan all making their post-restoration debuts at AirVenture in Oshkosh, which also hosted an historic gathering of MiG vintage jets, among them a civilian MiG-23, briefly on the airshow circuit. Other special Warbird moments included a formation of early swept-wing jets at Air Legend and Duxford's traditional mass formation of Spitfires. All this and more is coming up in Airshow Action 2023. Airshow Action is a two-part programme produced by AirshowStuff, Planes TV and This Is Flight. The first half of the programme features air shows from January through to July, and the second half features air shows from August through till the end of the year. You are watching Part 2. Part 1 is available on the AirshowStuff YouTube channel. You don't need to watch the two parts in any particular order, but when you're finished here, click the link in the video description to watch Part 1. And while you're there, check out the rest of the AirshowStuff YouTube channel, which covers air shows across North America and occasionally further afield, with new videos being published several times every week. We start Part 2 at Thunder Over Michigan, one of the biggest Warbird-themed air shows in the US. This was the 25th anniversary edition of the show, and as such, it brought together aircraft that have played a major part in the show's history over the last 25 years, most notably the P-51 Mustang. Eight Mustangs attended the show, with many of them launching to conduct parade laps en masse. One of the Mustangs, P-51B Old Crow, then joined up with CT-133 Silver Star Acemaker 3. Another mixed-type formation, but this time a pair of bombers, B-24A Liberator Diamond Lil and B-29A Superfortress Fifi. there is an airworthy privateer, a navalised version of the Liberator, Diamond Lille is the only true B-24 actively flying at the moment. It's also the oldest airworthy heavy bomber in the world. Probably the most anticipated performer was Dan Filer in his MiG-23 UB. This was the only civilian-operated MiG-23 in the world, and it was midway through its debut airshow season. As well as its usual solo flybys, the MiG also flew in formation with a pair of US Marine Corps F-35B Lightning IIs. Sadly, Thunder over Michigan transpired to be the MiG-23's final airshow appearance. It crashed during one of its displays, but fortunately without any casualties. The Radom Air Show returned in 2023 after a 5-year hiatus, hosted by the Polish Ministry of Defence and showcasing the Polish government's many and varied investments in their armed forces over the past few years. This is a leviathan of an airshow. The flying display on the Saturday started in the mid-morning and ran for 11 hours straight, concluding after dark with a night display for the first time in the history of the Radom Air Show. In other respects, the show was rather smaller than usual, just one big jet aerobatic team this year rather than the usual 4 or 5, with the Patrouille Suisse stepping up to the mantle for a spectacular flare-filled performance. The shrunken military lineup was supplemented with civilian assets, such as the Flying Bulls, who performed a joint display featuring a Bol 105C, Edge 540T and 2 Alpha Jet A's, and Fundasza Biało-Czerwone Skrzydła flying a pair of TS-11 Iskras. Many foreign air forces participated, with flying displays from a Czech W-3 Sokol and Jas-39C Gripen, a British Typhoon FGR-4, Finnish Fa-18C Hornet, and no fewer than 4 F-16 displays from Greece, Belgium, Poland and Denmark. This was one of the last opportunities to see this wonderful special scheme, known as the Danebrog. It was introduced in 2021 to mark the 800th anniversary of Denmark's national flag. This is one of the most aggressive F-16 displays on the circuit. Its 360-degree high-G turn, for example, was completed in just 14 seconds, a good 6 or 7 seconds faster than almost any other fast jet we filmed in 2023. We didn't know it at the time, but the Radom Air Show was one of the last chances to see Belgium's outstanding F-16AM Fighting Falcon solo display. A brand new, updated display routine for 2023 continued to push the boundaries of what is possible in this 49-year-old aircraft, with impressive negative G manoeuvres and high alpha manoeuvres inspired by the shape and movements of the F-16's namesake, the Viper. Belgium had been due to continue its F-16 solo displays at least until the end of 2024, but it was announced over the winter that the team had been axed with immediate effect. Faced with a shrinking and ageing fleet, there is a critical need to preserve airframe hours, both for Belgium's operational needs and to ensure that these aircraft are in the best possible condition when handed over to the armed forces of Ukraine. The Air Force also needed to free up training capacity and focus on its own transition to the F-35. The Polish F-16 closed the final day of the show flying not the usual F-16C, but an F-16D, which can carry twice as many flares as the single-seat version. Other Polish Air Force assets in the flying display included this C-295M in a special paint scheme known as the Krakow Dragon. And for the very first time, the Polish Air Force performed a full aerobatic routine in the M346 Bielik. The Bielik entered Polish service in 2016 and became fully operational in 2022. It's the first aircraft that Poland has ever operated which is fully capable of training pilots to fly 4th and 5th generation fighters, meaning that Poland is now able to carry out its entire flight training process domestically for the first time in quite a while. A total of 64 aircraft of the Polish Armed Forces participated in an air parade, which was the only chance to see some of Poland's rarest aerial assets. For example, this formation includes one of the Polish Army's newly acquired S-70I Blackhawks and one of the Polish Navy's soon-to-be retired Mi-14 anti-submarine helicopters. The stars of the air parade were 3 examples each of the Sukhoi Su-22 M4 and the MiG-29A. The Su-22s are expected to be retired imminently, and the MiG-29s will follow a few years later. They'll be partially replaced by the FA-50 Fighting Eagle, recently procured from Korea. The FA-50, MiG-29 and 2 Su-22s then performed a short airfield attack scenario. The first FA-50s arrived in Poland just a few weeks before the air show in so-called gap-filler configuration. Later deliveries will be of the Block 20 FA-50 PL standard, with beyond visual range air-to-air capability and aerial refuelling capability. By 2028, the whole fleet will be of FA-50 PL standard. Other recent acquisitions were displayed during this routine by test pilots from AgustaWestland, flying the AW101 and AW149. The latter has recently been ordered for the Polish Army and is to be manufactured locally by PZL Swidnik. Four AW101s were ordered by the Polish Navy to replace the Mi-14 in the anti-submarine warfare role. This is the first, and it was delivered to Poland just a couple of weeks before the Radom Air Show. However, at the show, it was crewed by test pilots from AgustaWestland rather than Polish military personnel. There was one more chance to see the Su-22 in action when a single example flew past during the night show, dropping photo flash flares from its KKR-1 recce pod. The firing of the flares is synchronised with a camera in the recce pod, thus allowing the aircraft to take detailed photos of the ground at night. This was the first time it had been demonstrated at an air show. Next, we headed to the Bournemouth Air Festival, the largest air show in Western Europe in terms of audience participation. And it's easy to see why. The show runs for 4 days with both day and night flying displays and plentiful viewing locations from around 4 miles of cliff tops and beaches. From the elevated clifftop vantage point, spectators actually look down on many aircraft, such as this unique pairing of Fairey Swordfish and Westland Wasp HAS-1. 2 anti-submarine platforms of very different eras which performed a short coordinated display. Another rotary asset, the RAF Chinook HC-6A, performing its typically spirited solo routine. Although this is a popular and long-standing fixture on the British airshow circuit, it was recently announced that, due to operational commitments, the team will not be performing in 2024. Bournemouth was a great location to see one of the latest innovations on the British airshow circuit, Rich Goodwin's highly modified jet-powered Pitts S2SE. 3 years in the making, this extraordinary aircraft finally made its airshow debut in 2023. It's powered by a highly tuned Lycoming AIO 540 and 2 Lynx turbojets, which combined give the aircraft a thrust-to-weight ratio of around 1.1 to 1. Theoretically, this means the aircraft can hover, but with no forward airspeed, the torque from the propeller puts the aircraft into a state of auto-rotation, and therefore the only options at the moment are extended torque rolls or extreme low-speed, high-alpha forward flight such as this. Rich and his team are still learning how to get the best from this aeroplane, and they're working on new manoeuvres and various small modifications in order to present an even better display in 2024. On the same weekend as Bournemouth, the Cleveland National Air Show was held in the USA. This was very likely the last civilian-run air show to host a US Marine Corps AV-8B2+ Harrier demonstration. Type, which is now nearing retirement, will only be displayed at the US Marine Corps' own air show at Cherry Point in 2024. The US Air Force Air Combat Command has been steadily improving its airshow offering over the past few years, with an increasing number of special paint schemes and the slow and cautious introduction of flares into displays. The F-22A Raptor performed with flares for the first time in 2023, albeit only at selected overwater show sites. Cleveland was one of them. Airshows returned to Scotland in 2023 with the relaunched Airshow Festival of Flight taking place in September. It was the first proper airshow to be held in the country since before the COVID pandemic. This event was formerly known as the Scottish International Airshow, but it hadn't been held since 2018 and there had been some uncertainty over its future. Usually when a British airshow drops off the calendar nowadays, it never comes back. But South Ayrshire District Council pulled out all the stops to revive their popular airshow with a new name and a new organising team. As well as the usual British seaside airshow suspects, the show included an interesting demonstration of Gravity Industries' new jet suits. This technology is soon expected to enter service with the Royal Marines and with the Lake District National Park Mountain Rescue Team. Next, on to one of the biggest military airshows in North America, Airshow London in Canada. This year's show included some rare participants, for example this FA-18F Super Hornet in an all-black paint scheme known as Bandy 1, operated by the US Navy for test and evaluation purposes. And this US Air Force RC-135B Rivet Joint with both aircraft appearing on static display. In the flying display, several demonstrations of aerial refuelling. The US Air Force MC-130J Commando 2 paired with the US Marine Corps MV-22B Osprey. These aircraft will demonstrate the probe and drogue method of refuelling. This is the most flexible form of aerial refuelling. It can be used with a wider variety of aircraft designs, and it can be used to refuel multiple aircraft at any one time. Here, a KC-135R Stratotanker flanked by F-16Cs. This time, the KC-135 is demonstrating the rigid boom refuelling method, which is arguably harder and less flexible, but the fuel transfer rate is considerably higher. The US Navy's helicopters don't perform at air shows very often, but Airshow London hosted a performance by an MH-53E Sea Dragon. The basic CH-53C Stallion design goes back to the 1960s, but this Sea Dragon model is newer and considerably more powerful. And it's fitted with enlarged sponsons on the side of the fuselage for increased fuel capacity. It's one of the largest helicopters currently in military service, with capacity for 55 troops, 13 tons of internal cargo, or 16 tons of underslung cargo. Paris Air Legend is one of the newest and largest Warbird-themed air shows in the world, and 2023's edition was an outstanding success, with more than 30 piston Warbirds and double-digit vintage jets taking part in the flying display. France was once home to one of the last remaining airworthy B-17s, but 15 years has now passed since a B-17 last appeared at a French air show. That was rectified at Air Legend, where B-17G Flying Fortress Sally B performed a solo display and formation passes with a Spitfire Mark V. There were rare Mustangs aplenty, including fantastic solo displays by P-51D Francis Dell, which had only been imported into Europe a few years previously, and the public debut of newly restored TF-51D Miss Ava. The occupation of France was represented by this entertaining three-ship display featuring a Ju-52 from the Amical Jean-Baptiste Salis and a pair of MS-505 Criquets playing the part of Fi-156 Storks. For a Warbird show, the military lineup was very strong this year. The DGA-EV, the French government's secretive flight test and procurement department, performed at an air show for the first time in several decades with one of their new TBM 940 chase planes. There were no fewer than 7 Rafales in the flying display this year, a Rafale C solo display on Saturday, a Rafale B solo display on Sunday, 2 more Rafale Bs from the Recounting Mike tactical display, and 3 Rafale Ms from the French Navy. The Rafale Ms demonstrated buddy-buddy refuelling, and performed an outstanding tactical display. They also joined up with an E-2C Hawkeye for a formation pass. The French Navy only has 3 Hawkeyes, making the type an extremely rare airshow participant. But nonetheless, 4 flotilles were able to put on a very spirited performance in the skies of Moulins. More military action from the Patrouille de France, who celebrated their 70th anniversary in 2023. The anniversary is a little tenuous because the Patrouille de France brand has been passed between various squadrons over the years, and this squadron, allowing for a few structural changes, has actually been performing at airshows for over 90 years. But, officially, it's their 70th birthday, and they marked the occasion with this extraordinary manoeuvre called Le Héritage. The 2023 Patrouille de France display routine was particularly good. The team presented many familiar manoeuvres, but with a novel twist, such as adding 2 extra jets to this classic Patrouille de France move called Le Shérif. The Patrouille de France focus on being artistic rather than concentrating on absolute technical perfection, and this refreshing approach allows for a particularly varied and engaging display routine compared to many other military aerobatic teams. Before they flew the Alpha Jet, the Patrouille de France operated the CM-170 Magister. Recalling that, Patrouille Tranchant performed a stunningly graceful 4-ship display, complete with coloured smoke.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'est la Patrouille Tranchant.
More classic jets now, and probably the highlight of Air Legend 2023 was this 3-ship performance by a replica ME-262, a LIN-2 representing the MiG-15, and a CL-13B Sabre Mark 6 representing the F-86. This formation, which had never been performed anywhere in the world before, tells the story of early jet development by bringing together the first German, Soviet and American swept-wing jet-powered fighters. After several formation passes, the Sabre and MiG performed an energetic Korean War tailchase. Operating vintage jets isn't easy at the best of times, but these two organisations are particularly impressive. Frederick Ackery operates his Sabre without the help of any engineers or support crew and performs almost all the maintenance and inspection works on the Sabre himself. Fundacja Eskadra, which operates the LIM 2, is similarly impressive. This organisation not only operates two MiG-15s, but recently announced they have commenced work on restoring a LIM 5, the Polish version of the MiG-17. This should be ready to fly at air shows in 2025, and it will be the only airworthy MiG-17 in Europe. The Foundation also hopes to operate a MiG-21 within the next few years. The following week, the Warbird community decamped across the English Channel to Duxford, one of the most famous airshow venues in the world. Duxford hosted 8 flying displays in 2023, Plains TV live broadcast all of them, and we are featuring the largest 3 here on Airshow Action. Probably the most anticipated event of the season was the Battle of Britain Air Show, a Warbird-themed event that featured countless iconic Second World War aircraft. The Battle of France was marked with a pairing of a Hawk 75A1 and a P-36 Seahawk from the fighter collection. We also enjoyed seeing formations of Mustangs, Spitfires, Hurricanes, and a pairs display featuring a P-47D Thunderbolt and Fury ISS. The Battle of the Atlantic was a major theme, with a set-piece display involving a Nimrod, Swordfish and PBY-5A Catalina. And there was a radial engine segment featuring a C-19 Anson and 2 Gloucester Gladiators, a rare opportunity to see these aircraft sharing the sky. More radial engines with a pair of Lysanders, one from the Shuttleworth collection and the other from the Aircraft Restoration Company. But as special formations go, a real highlight not just of the Battle of Britain Air Show but of the entire season was this pairing of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight's Lancaster B-1 with B-17G Flying Fortress Sally B. This was the first time that the Lancaster and B-17 had performed a formation display for almost 30 years. The finale of the Duxford Battle of Britain Air Show is the so-called Duxford Big Wing. This year, the Big Wing featured 18 aircraft in formation, 14 Spitfires, 1 Seafire and 3 Hurricanes. Between the formation passes, John Romaine performed an unforgettable solo routine in Spitfire PR-14 RN201 from Aerial Speed Icons.
From the Royal Air Force. It led 2 days later to Hitler postponing.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much over by so much.
As the aircraft from the Big Wing returned to land, there was one more memorable solo display, this time by Spitfire Mark 9T ML407, better known as the Grace Spitfire. This aircraft was formerly owned and flown by Carolyn Grace, who died in December 2022. This performance was a tribute to her, and it was flown by Pete Kinsey, one of the pilots who taught Carolyn Grace to fly the Spitfire. For those who visited Duxford on the Friday before the Battle of Britain Air Show, there was one extra surprise: an 8-ship formation and tailchase by Warbirds owned or operated by the Aircraft Restoration Company. This was not a practice for any specific performance, just an opportunity for display pilots to hone their tail-chasing skills in the full knowledge that, this being the day before an air show, there would be plenty of photographers on the ground to capture their efforts. This perhaps epitomises the magic of Duxford. It is a living museum, and you simply never know what you might see, even on what is ostensibly a normal operating day. At the same time as the eyes of the Warbird community were all firmly on Duxford, one of the biggest military events of the year was unfolding in Czechia. NATO Days is more than just an air show. It features around 8 hours of daily displays, most of which do involve aircraft, but it also includes tank battles and other ground performances from military, customs and law enforcement agencies. Each year, NATO Days chooses a different partner nation, and this time it was Poland who took one of their FA-50 Fighting Eagles abroad for the first time to appear in the static display. In the air, an F-16 and aerobatic team Orlik. Other flying display performers included a Hungarian Jas-39C Gripen, British and Spanish Typhoons, Slovak UH-60, and, from Germany, an NH-90 tactical transport helicopter and Airbus A400M. There were 2 F-35s in the flying display at NATO Days. The Royal Air Force performed a short hover demonstration with an F-35B at a foreign air show for the first time, whereas the United States Air Force attended with their F-35A solo display. The F-35 demonstration team made numerous European airshow appearances in 2023 at the behest of Lockheed Martin, as further NATO members joined the programme. This was the F-35's first full aerobatic display in Central Europe, and a few months after the show, Czechia announced that it would purchase 24 F-35s, which will arrive in the early 2030s to replace the Gripen. The home team, the Czech Air Force, of course contributed strongly, with special flypasts and solo displays. Notable this year, a solo by an L-159 Alka. Typically, the Czechs perform a two-ship Alka roll demonstration, but with one of the display pilots taking time out to recover from injury, the performance was hastily reduced to a solo display in 2023. This proved highly enjoyable, with plenty of flares and some interesting manoeuvres that we aren't used to seeing. Sadly, the Alka is not expected to perform at any air shows in 2024. Another significant Czech display came from the MiG-24V. Initially due to retire the year beforehand, the Mi-24 was given a brief stay of execution and continued to serve for a few extra months. But this time, this really is its final public appearance. To replace the Mi-24, Czechia has purchased the UH-1Y Venom and AH-1Z Viper, both of which appeared in the static display. The following week, numerous other Venoms and Vipers were performing at MCAS Miramar as part of the show's traditional Marine Air Ground Task Force demonstration. The demonstration also included a KC-130J Hercules, CH-53E Super Stallions, MV-22B Ospreys, F-35C Lightning IIs, and FA-18C and D Legacy Hornets. One last US air show now, San Francisco Fleet Week. While nothing particularly out of the ordinary occurred by Fleet Week standards, this was our first time attending the airshow on the Bay, and it's certainly a spectacular venue at which to see the Blue Angels perform. Alcatraz Island sits just outside the aerobatic box and thus is able to remain open for the show. The Blues seemingly modified several of their manoeuvres to take the island into account, offering an incredible view to those who'd made the trip out to the Rock. We return now to Duxford for the last time this year, for a very special airshow indeed. Duxford has been hosting airshows for half a century, and this special event, held on the 14th of October, took place 50 years to the day after the inaugural Duxford Air Day. The flying display featured one aircraft which actually performed at that very first airshow in 1973, the camouflage Miles Magister from the Shuttleworth collection. The second Magister is owned by David Bramwell. Today, Duxford is probably most famous for being the home of a great collection of piston fighters, and the final display of the day brought together 4 of the most active home-based Warbirds. From fighter aviation engineering, there was a Fury ISS and P-47D Thunderbolt, and from the fighter collection, there was an FG-1D Corsair and F-8F-2P Bearcat. All 4 aircraft are the only flying examples of their kind in Britain. The display was led by Paul Bonham, and he was joined by Steve Jones, Brian Smith and Stu Goldspink. It's not every day that the public get to see a brand new kind of aircraft, but exactly that happened at ADEX 2023. Korea Aerospace Industries showed off the KF-21 Boromei stealth fighter to the public for the first time. The type had made its first flight just 3 months previously. The show also provided a chance to say farewell to Korea's F-4 Phantoms, which will be retired in 2024. By November, the airshow season in the US and Europe has come to a close, but there's still plenty of airshow action to be enjoyed elsewhere in the world. The Dubai Air Show is one of the largest and most important airshows on the calendar, and organisers said that the 2023 edition was the biggest ever, with over 90 aircraft taking part. The static display was packed with large airliners, dominated by an Emirates A380 and the unveiling of one of Riyadh Air's brand new 787s. 2 airliners also took part in the flying display, the A350-1000 and the 777-9. Major Kristen Wolfe of the US Air Force performed the final air display of her career in Dubai, marking the end of a successful 4-year tenure as the F-35A demonstration pilot. There were 4 jet aerobatic teams in the flying display: the Russian Knights, the Frecce Tricolori from Italy, August the 1st from China, and the UAE's own Fazan Al Emirat. The future of the UAE Air Force was represented by the Rafale C, and present-day capability was projected by solo displays from the F-16E Desert Falcon and the Mirage 2000-9. Aside from at the Dubai Air Show, these solo displays aren't seen very often, but they are performances of the highest calibre. The Mirage 2000 Solo in particular is extremely high quality and has clearly been much influenced by French Air Force Mirage displays from years gone by. Perhaps the most keenly awaited flying display of the Dubai Air Show 2023 was the world debut of the F-15QA Ababil. Here, Boeing test pilot Jason Dotter performed an extraordinary manoeuvre, exiting a split S into a low-speed high-alpha pass before applying full afterburner and climbing into a double Immelmann. The F-15QA was developed for the Qatar Emiri Air Force and is based on the F-15E Strike Eagle, but with more powerful engines, additional weapon stations and, for the first time on an F-15, fly-by-wire flight controls. The aircraft has also since been ordered by the United States, albeit with a few minor modifications, and in American service it is known as the F-15EX Eagle II. The Dubai Air Show was notable as being the first ever event to feature Indian and Pakistani arch rivals, the Tejas and JF-17 Thunder, performing in the same flying display. Traditionally, the two types avoid appearing alongside each other. Both types have had their problems. The JF-17, for example, is built as an extremely low-cost fighter, about 1/3 the price of a more mainstream aircraft. However, this has involved compromises. The aircraft are susceptible to fuselage cracks, and the radar, engine and data link systems have proved unreliable. The Tejas is arguably a more ambitious project than the JF-17, with higher spec equipment and some interesting aerodynamics at play. However, it's been hamstrung by over-ambitious targets, followed by underfunding, delays and extremely low production rates. As a result, 4 decades after the project was launched, only 40 aircraft have been delivered, half of which are not fully combat capable. The Indian delegation was also supported by the utterly charming Sarang helicopter display team. Delivered to 8 nations in military or government roles, the Dhruv is by far the most successful aircraft that India has ever designed in terms of sales. The UAE recently ordered a small fleet of Katic L-15A Falcons, a subsonic, non-afterburning, export-friendly version of the Hongdu JL-10. One of their new jets, which was awaiting final delivery, appeared in the flying display in Dubai, flown by Chinese test pilots, and Emirati officials finally confirmed what the new aircraft will be used for. These L-15s will replace the charismatic but ageing MB-339As currently used by the Fazan Al Emirat aerobatic team, probably sometime around 2026 or 2027. And here is Fazan Al Emirat, who had the honour of closing the final day of the show. This is a display which is packed with symbolism. 7 jets to represent the 7 emirates that make up the UAE, gold and black paint schemes to denote the colours of the desert sand and the riches of the oil hidden beneath it, and manoeuvres that are inspired by the landmarks and culture of the UAE. The new aircraft will bring about major changes to Fazan Al Emirat's fantastic display sequence. Many of their current manoeuvres, flown using the MB339, simply won't be possible with a new aircraft. For example, Fazan Al Emirat is currently the only jet aerobatic team in the world to perform a 2-ship synchronised Lomshavak, and this is not something that the L-15 will be able to do. That being said, the current fleet of MB339s, mostly purchased second-hand from the Italian Air Force, will reach the end of their useful lives by the end of the decade, and will need replacing soon. Fazan Al Emirat closed the show with their trademark manoeuvre, the UAE DNA. There's a little more Emirati aviation action still to come, because on several occasions this year we followed Aerosparks to the UAE, and one of those displays seems like a fitting way to end Airshow Action 2023. This world-first performance combined aircraft with a drone swarm for the very first time, almost 2,000 drones to be precise, as well as fireworks, lights and specially composed music. It was a jaw-dropping performance that completely redefines what aerial entertainment can be. It's a fitting way to end Airshow Action 2023, but remember to check out Part 1 if you haven't already, which features more than an hour of other highlights, including the F-104 and G91 at the Italian Air Force Centenary, the Royal Malaysian Air Force's incredible opening gambit at Lima, and the best moments from Air Venture in Oshkosh and the Royal International Air Tattoo. Part 1 is available on the AirshowStuff YouTube channel, and while you're there, remember to check out their other content, such as this.